Speaker, 2024, their budget was 1.3 billion for procurement. They ended up procuring 8.2 billion. That is the source of the problem. So those who are on social media and trying to play the political game, let me assure you, it will not deter me. So I realized that ECG was paying a lot of bills when they've not even had access to the goods. And when you ask them, I asked the procurement manager, director of procurement, a question. I said, why did he say, oh, Chairman, this is the practice since. Mr. Speaker, first let me commend the maker of the statement for bringing this matter to the floor. I have heard views expressed on this matter. And I must say that today is another day of sadness for the politics of the country. Because a system has succeeded in setting us up to set ourselves apart. Mr. Speaker, let me give some few facts for the Hansard of this House. I had the privilege of chairing Ghana Water. Every single reform I initiated ended up in the media, caused by the very people who perpetrated it. And in the end, it turned political. So, nothing gets done. ECG, I had the privilege of chairing the board in July. Because I'm a businessman, the first question I ask myself is that how can ECG award a contract? And when the contract is awarded, all the person does is deliver at the port, present bill of lading, and request for payment. I said, with the greatest respect, I don't want to use a word. This is Parliament. I was shattered. I said, how? And ECG would have to pay. So I realized that ECG was paying a lot of bills when they have not even had access to the goods. And when you ask them, I asked the procurement manager, director of procurement, a question. I said, why did he say, oh, Chairman, this is the practice since. This is the practice. And they will bring you document. I listened to Honorable Member for Sekondi, lawyer, you from Sekondi, question meeting. And I am adopting his submissions as though they were mine. The time has come. This politics, somebody says MPP, NDC, it's a system problem that I will any day support this minister to embark on reforms. How come containers at the ports, containers that have arrived, the bureaucracy at our ports, they say the containers are missing. Mr. Speaker, it is true that when these containers come, there is some connivance with some customs officials, and they sell these containers, these cables that ECG needs after the supplier has been paid. They sell the container, and then people will sell back to ECG. Are we pretending we don't know? Instead of us to pay attention and kill the rots, then we come here, then MPP, NDC, so now they say, oh, maybe it's happening under MPP, it's happening under NDC. No. An honorable minister, I know what you can do. If we can give you support to do it, you must adopt a posture, a non-partisan posture, and tackle the rots. But if we all want to approach it, MPP, NDC, Mr. Speaker, it will remain. NDC will spend 4 years, 16 years, 20 years, the same thing will be there. They will come into opposition, and the same thing would arise again. Then the perpetrators will be there in the system. Mr. Speaker, today, Ghanaian businesses cannot sleep because there's a new government, whereas foreign businesses are surviving because their ambassadors will be protecting their businesses. So Ghanaian businesses who did business in MPP time are at risk, whereas foreign companies are surviving because we are quick to say this business is a pro-MPP, so it should die. What are we doing to ourselves? What are we doing to ourselves? Mr. Speaker, I know the minister will come and say, oh, ECG has a huge bill. There is debt. Now who calls them? Us, as a political class. When there are issues, we don't identify the issue and say, this one is a national issue. Let's kill it. We want to play partisan football with it. It comes back to haunt us. How many people pay bills in Ghana? ECG, all the power that we produce. Mr. Speaker, let me hazard a guess. I can say, not on authority, that less than 20% of consumers pay. A lot of factories consume electricity, they don't pay. The prepaid is adjusted all over. At the end of the day, it becomes the debt of the state. These are things that if the minister comes and says, look, I am embarking on serious reforms, I will go all out to back him. Because if the nation fails, it affects all of us. And for MPP, NDC, we shouldn't be too comfortable with this democracy. With this day's social media, the youths, they are so impatient that if we continue to play this game, they will be watching. We may be surprised. Let's be careful. Let us be careful as a political class. The issue at stake is scandalous, is serious, it's not MPP, NDC matter. All these public institutions, and sometimes some of the appointees of the previous government, you see them even saying that they are professionals. They were not MPP. Now they come here and then they are dining with you. You're also happy. When you lose power, they turn around and they do this and that and that. And then they are hitting our heads and we are here shouting. No. The public system, the public service structure, those SOEs, that government invests so much. Every now and then, we have bureaucracies being established by law, and the state will give money. Look at the initiative, this Gold Bond initiative. For all you know, government means well. But trust me, if in the enactment, we don't put in place the support systems, people will take the money and say, but I helped the NDC to come to power. He will even go and buy the gold, and you cannot even prosecute. I invested in Winneba. I bought taxes for my people. The person is working. He's not paying. You can't prosecute. You can't even then have to pay. What is going on in the country? Because politics. We know. We set up initiatives. Where we are helping our people. We give them the loans. Kufuor's Maslock. People didn't pay. Rawlins's intervention program, poverty alleviation, they didn't pay. When Rawlins lost, Atamus lost, and Kufuor came, all the attempt to prosecute those people who didn't pay the loan, they said because they were NDC. When Kufuor also came and they took the loan and they didn't pay and Atamus was prosecuting, they said, I'm MPP. And it's been going on, and we see saying the national debts. All these social interventions that are going down the drain, it's become consumption, not investment. So as a political class, let's wake up. Let's get more serious. Tackle the issues. $700 million is not cheap money. Go to ECG. Those companies are chasing ECG, and now because the minister is enforcing the cash waterfall, they say they get only 40 million cedis, and the 40 million cedis is not even enough to pay salary. Those officers at ECG, those directors, they are the ones who should hold them to account and stop this political football we play. And then we come and we say it was MPP time. Honorable member who brought the statement up, with the greatest respect to you, I do not think an answer will be in a parliamentary inquiry. With the greatest respect to you. And honorable minister, I do not think an answer to the problem is a political inquiry. Hold the bull by the horn. And I, Kwamina, will support you because I've been there. In fact, I've seen a lot of the rot in our public service system. I've seen a lot of the rot in the SOEs, but they take advantage of us as politicians. They mess up and they know that, oh, the politicians will make noise. Then they are still chopping and milking the states. You and I know. You and I know. The managing director of ECG, the director of procurement, must be seen to be telling us why, as a director of procurement, he will issue a contract, and then the contract is that deliver at the port, bring bill of lading, and ask for payment without even having access to it. And then a minister is to take a blame. A minister must not take a blame on this matter. It shouldn't be a political partisan matter, but it's a system failure which we have the capacity, the authority to deal with. I shall rest my case, Mr. Speaker. If we are serious, this is the day. And Minister, I crave your indulgence to do what is right for legacy purpose, for your image, and I'm sure you will live up to that day.
Thank you very much. Yes, majority leader.
Mr. Speaker, I will let the minister come before me. Yeah,
I thought he would wrap up.
No.
Very well.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, as Minister for Energy and Green Transition, currently my vision is simple. I want all the 1,346 containers accounted for. 1,346 containers. Whatever it takes, I'll bring those containers to where they ought to be. Mr. Speaker, let me set the record straight. My good friend, Professor, will listen to me. There's not been any inconsistency. At the transition committee, Honorable Ayarga was there. They gave us a figure of 3,000. Then they told us it had incurred demurrage of 1.5 billion. On the 17th, on the 24th, I visited the harbour. At the harbour, I was told the containers were 2,500. That is what aroused my suspicion. I didn't say at the harbour that the containers are 2,500. I couldn't have counted 2,500 containers instantaneously. And so from 24th, I went to brief the president on 27th. And by 31st, I had established this committee. There was media coverage. And we took Professor Senyo. He's a chartered procurement expert. The report was submitted just this week. It was during the presentation of the report that the committee told me that contrary to the figures they were giving you, over 1,300 containers cannot be accounted for. These are the facts and nothing but the facts. Mr. Speaker, these are the facts. So those who are on social media and trying to play the political game, let me assure you, it will not deter me. Mr. Speaker, I just came from Pau. We've gone to 4 warehouses. 2 of them are factories. And what they've been doing over the years is that they buy these containers with brand new aluminum cables and then melt them into aluminum rods and export them. Today, I encourage everybody to watch the television sets. You will see the cables, brand new cables, being put into the furnace, being melted and converted to rods. Mr. Speaker, Yesterday, when President Mahama called me, his message was simple. Jinapo, you have my full backing, go the full throttle. And that is exactly what we are doing. We've already arrested some Chinese nationals. We are on the trail of some Indian nationals who have bolted. But you know, this is the House of Record. And so I'm very, very cautious. I've received a lot of briefing. And I'm getting to know those who are behind it. This has been going on for years. I will stop that, and it will stop right now. But Mr. Speaker, it's not just going to stop. We shall retrieve the containers of the materials. We shall prosecute the perpetrators, and we will prosecute the perpetrators, and we will sell the rods to recover the cost. Mr. Speaker, people are complaining that at the distribution level, the power system is not stable. It is because you buy the materials and you don't use them. They end up somewhere other than their intended purpose.
But Mr. Speaker, you hold on. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the minister is not out. If it pleases him, I'm just coming in with point of information. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, it must be for the records that we managed to order that under a new dispensation, all contract to be awarded by ECG should be aimed at delivery at their warehouses. In September 2024, when this matter came to the fore, and whilst I was there as chair, this was done, and it is part of the report to the minister. I just wanted that for the record, so that nobody goes behind it to attempt to say that there is still an existing you award and you deliver at the port, just by way of information to him, to help him.
Thank you very much. Yes.
But Mr. Speaker, I'm not just looking at tackling the problem, I'm also looking at the source of the problem. That for me is very, very important. Mr. Speaker, and with your permission, I'll tender in the committee's report so that everybody can read it. I'll tender it in. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the tables, for instance, in year 2023, their approved planned procurement was 935 million. That's less than 1 billion. By the end of the year, they had procured 8.3 billion. 7.3 billion more than their budget could accommodate. And so you had so many containers arriving at the port. So many containers arriving at the port. They are not able to clear, and that gives way for these things. 2024, their budget was 1.3 billion for procurement. They ended up procuring 8.2 billion. That is the source of the problem. And I hold the view that whoever was responsible and the MD approving, Mr. Speaker, is even worried. If you look at the procurement, the MD has a threshold of $1 million. A day, they sign 20 contracts, all of them 900. These are the key issues that I am focusing on. And so let me tell those politicians, and excuse my language, Mr. Speaker, I believe that some of the criminals are part of it. On social media and trying to muddy the waters. Your days are numbered. Mr. Speaker, the containers have serial numbers. They are received at the port. They are entered into a document. There's a manifest for it. Before they move on, somebody has to sign for it. It has to go through an agent. It has to get to a destination. And I will trace all of that. We will trace them. That is the way to go. Already, I have written to the Bureau of National Investigations, or National Investigation Bureau, to commence investigation. And so, Mr. Speaker, without arguing too much, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I will tender in the reports.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, in winding up, we are given some immediate directives. The procurement unit was merged with the estate department. The head of procurement was jettisoned, and the head of estate department was then made to take care of the procurement. So I've written to ECG immediately that should be decoupled, and a qualified procurement expert should man the procurement unit. Secondly, we've reduced their budget from 500 million to 250. Because we must pay for the power producers. Today, the bill is over 80 billion in the energy sector. Over 80 billion. If we don't do something, this sector would collapse. And as Minister, Mr. Speaker, I am determined to do my bit, no matter how difficult it is. Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker.
So, Honourable Majority Leader, you have the floor.
So, Mr. Speaker, I think from the statement, the comments, and the briefing that we have received from the Minister, the facts are quite straightforward. That ECG reported that they had imported 2,462 containers, and that they had received those containers at GPHE. An additional 34 containers had not arrived yet. However, Mr. Speaker, when the minister sent a team to go and carry out some investigation, they reported that only 1,134 containers were there. And indeed, some of the 1,134 containers had been opened and the contents could not be accounted for. Those are the facts. Mr. Speaker, from what the minister has indicated, he has reported to the Bureau of National Investigation, and they are busy going around the country trying to track the containers. Some few containers have been located, and the contents cannot be accounted for, except that he has indicated that they have taken them out, aluminium component of the items smelted and converted into aluminium products to be out of the country. Mr. Speaker, it is also worthy of note that he says the problem arises from a practice of over-procuring. In 2023, when the ECG budgeted for 935.4 million worth of items to procure, they ended up procuring 8.3 billion worth of materials. 2024, where they budgeted for 1.3 billion worth of materials, they procured 8.2 billion worth of materials. So what happens is that the materials arrive at the port and they don't have the funds to clear the materials. Then the materials start disappearing at the ports. It means that there's been a cartel all along that has specialized in ensuring that the containers are stolen out of the port and then vandalized. Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that must be investigated. But then also, he highlighted the root causes of the problem, the overprocurement. And Mr. Speaker, it is significant that the committee has reported that clearly ECG has not been complying with the procurement laws. There is an argument that ECG is not affected by the Public Procurement Act, and that because they are a company, then they can procure on their own and don't need approval from the PPA. And that the only time when they need approval from the PPA is when they use resources coming from the state to procure. That's the only time that they need approval from the PPA. And yet, on several occasions, they received funding from the state, and yet they still didn't use the PPA-approved processes for procurement. So clearly, this is an entity that has, over the years, been on its own, procuring whatever it wanted without going through the procurement rules, and that is what has accounted for the situation that we find ourselves. Mr. Speaker, the maker of the statement has called for punitive actions to be taken, and I support the maker of the statement that punitive action must be taken. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the amounts involved, that 8.2 or 8.3 billion, if you total the 2 years, 2023 and 2024, we are looking at close to 17 billion Ghana cedis worth of items imported without resort to the procurement laws. Who were the leaders at ECG at that time? Who were the leaders of ECG? Who were the leaders? Who was the chairman of ECG? Who was the CEO of ECG? How is it that 17 billion Ghana cedis worth of items could be procured without compliance with the procurement provisions of the PPA, the Public Procurement Act? Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious matter. And that's why I was surprised that a statement coming from this other side will now be asking us to investigate and to punish those who are involved in such actions. Mr. Speaker, this country must change. And I'm happy that the minister has promised to go to the root of the matter, and he has the full support of this House. Full support of this House to hold all those who are involved in this exercise accountable. From the leadership of ECG to the leadership of the port. To the leadership of the port. And those who specifically stole the containers out of the port, they must also be held accountable. And the companies that over the years have been exporting aluminum products, we need to investigate them. Where have they been sourcing their aluminum products? The raw materials. Mr. Speaker, we as members of Parliament campaigned on a promise of ensuring that we extend rural electrification to our communities. Mr. Speaker, some of us have had to use our personal monies to buy rolls of coils, pay contractors to have electricity extended to communities before we were voted for, not knowing that there was a cartel using state resources, over 17 billion Ghana cedis, to buy these same materials for rural electrification, and the materials were never getting to our communities. And we were held accountable as candidates, and we had to use our personal resources to extend electricity. I can boast, and anybody can go to my constituency, and the people will tell you that close to 70% of the rural electrification in my constituency was financed from my personal pocket. That's why I'm so angry and passionate. You can call the regional coordinator of rural electrification in Upper East, and he will tell you that no one has used his personal resources to finance rural electrification like I have done. Then you come, so there was procurement, and that you should wait, you will get the material. Later you are told that the materials are unavailable, but you trace the ministry, you say, we have procured. But where are the materials? The materials don't get to the communities. Not knowing that people were pilfering the materials, selling them in Accra here, melting the cables, and re-exporting it. Mr. Speaker, they must be held accountable. Everybody must be held accountable, and we will ensure that. I am happy that my colleague, the minority leader who sat there and understands the intricacies of what is happening, has pledged to this House to support the effort. We will work with him. Everybody will be held accountable. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.